China's rise is a miracle. It's a role model. Everybody is benefiting. We are benefiting.
Wolfgang Schussel served as Austrian chancellor between 2000 and 2007. He visited China this December for the 2025 Understanding China conference in Guangzhou. He is an advocate of an open economy and multilateralism, and has visited China many times and witnessed the country's transformation over the decades. We sat down with him to discuss the skepticism toward China's rise, calls for Europe's decoupling from China, Europe's strategic autonomy, and opportunities and risks posed by artificial intelligence. Here is a full dialogue. Many have argued that the West has not been prepared emotionally and psychologically for China's rise. So how do you see China's position in today's world, and how do you see this particular moment in China's history?
First of all, I think China's rise is a miracle, and it's a good symbol for other countries. It's a role model how you can really come out from a least developed country to a middle income country and a world leader in some areas, in economy, in technique, in science, in urban development. It's really fascinating to see how China is coming up. And there is no negative emotion on that. We are looking to facts and figures. 50 years ago, for instance, the overall trade between European Union and China was 1 billion euro. Today it is 842 billion euro. This is tremendous. This is an enormous success, a win-win situation. Everybody benefited. China is richer, but also Europe benefited a lot. Today's situation is interesting because I think China is now in a completely different world order embedded. We no longer have a unipolar world where only the Americans are dominating. It's also not a G2 where two dominant powers are dominating everything. Now it's a multipolar world, and I think China is playing a very significant and important role. And I think together, Europe and China, we could do a lot of good things and good developments for the world. We are number one partner, trade partner for China.
There are some voices in Europe, like they want to decouple with China or de-risking from China.
First of all, decoupling is a no word for me. I was always a free trader. I was at the starting point of the World Trade Organization. At that time, I was Minister for Economic Affairs, and we created together with other countries the World Trade Order. I was always in favor of the accession of China to the World Trade Organization in 2001. And so I'm absolutely pro-free and open fair trade. This does not mean there are not sometimes tensions, not? Because if you look to the trade figures today, China is exporting 2,400 billion of euro, importing 1,600 billion euro. So this is not really balanced. So I think we could discuss it. And I think one good element would be that China, for instance, could invest more in Europe. It's not necessary to produce everything in China and then export it to other countries. I think what China is already doing, that you can invest also in other countries. Trade is always a two-way exchange. I have something to offer, you have something, and let's exchange. Let's do business together, and everybody will profit.
But for some Chinese companies, they find it very hard to invest and go to the European market because of the political tensions. Some would use the term national security to prevent a further engagement with China.
Every country, each country has some security thoughts. China has it, by the way, as well. You have your own ideas, but normally these political interpretations do not really affect business, mutual investment. I think there's a need for more cross-border investment on all sides. And you don't forget that Europe invested a lot in China. At the beginning, for instance, I was today informed by a Chinese friend who told me that in the 80s, for instance, the Europeans helped a lot to invest and to create a kind of a milk industry, or the car industry in China was de facto started with European producers. So I think this is a give and take. And we should always understand also the concerns and the sensitivities of others. And if we understand each other better, then it's easy to find solutions. But nevertheless, free and fair trade means we have to balance a little bit. Let's find solutions. If we have a frank and open dialogue, it's good. It's always good.
Mm-hmm. So you are not worried about the political rhetoric. You believe the economic rationality will finally prevail?
At the end, I think the markets have the upper hand. The markets, with their own rationality, they will tell the politicians what to do. But I see today a different scenario, and this has something to do with the tensions, the geopolitical tensions today. We see that everything can be weaponized. For instance, tariffs can be weaponized. So I think we should refrain of all these elements. So I think it's always better to have a rule-based order, and with also some mechanism, a dispute settlement mechanism, with a fair and objective way to solve problems. If this is the case, then not a political interference will help. This, in my opinion, distorts and disrupts the markets, the market economy, and this is not good.
Mm-hmm. It's interesting because in the past, Europe, the United States have been the champion of free trade. But now the US seems to be moving away from globalization and pushing forward these protectionist policies.
Honestly, I think Europe still is an ambassador of free trade or a guardian of a free market economy on the global scene. But I see some elements of more protectionism. This is true. But at the creation of the WTO organization, so the World Trade Organization, we decreased the tariffs from, let's say, 15% on average globally down to 2-3%. Now it is, with Trump, going up, which is not good, because protectionism is a wall against change, but it's also a wall against progress, and this is not good. At the end, there will not be a win situation for one side. It is a lose-lose situation, because if you impose tariffs or you weaponize tariffs, then you will get countermeasures, counter-tariffs. I think we need open markets. And I think the next 50 years is also one issue of the discussions here. Either we have a positive future in the next 50 years with, let's say, tripling of the GDP of China, doubling the GDP of Europe, with more life expectancy. We live 7 years longer in the minimum, with fantastic innovations and inventions, scientists, research, etc. So a bright, fascinating future. Or we end up with tensions everywhere. Everybody is mistrusting the other partners or the other players on the global scene. Trust, confidence is the currency of the 21st century. And I think we should do our utmost to recreate trust. We had this in the past, and I think we need it for the future as well.
Mm-hmm. If a trade war benefits nobody, why is the US interested in imposing tariffs on so many countries?
Yeah, look, I'm an economist, and I know that, so to say, protectionism, which is also an old theory. We had it in the 20s, the last century. We had some elements also in other times. We had, not only in America, you have protectionist ideas. You have it in some areas. And some people are always thinking it's better to protect ourselves. My opinion is the contrary. I think we should open our markets, open our arms, give freedom to thinkers, to innovators, to respect, so to say, those who have different opinions, different options, and we can learn from them. For me, for instance, I was the first time in China, I think it's more than 40 years ago, and seeing what China achieved, this is a learning process also for me and for us, what China did in long-term strategy planning, what China is able to implement in an enormous speed. If you plan something and you are really committed to do something, then with an enormous speed it is realized. We can learn in Europe from China. And
how do you see the importance of AI, and especially the US is tightening export controls on advanced AI towards China?
AI, artificial intelligence, has a dual and ambiguous consequence. The first thing is very positive. It could empower a lot of jobs in service industry, in financial industry, in the government, for instance, administration. So a lot can be more effective, faster, more dedicated to the needs of citizens. On one hand, could also ease with manufacturing, with robotics and all these things. So it really would make it easier to work in some areas. On the other hand, there's also a tendency that artificial intelligence could create a lot of control. And this is not so easy. Not? State control, and for instance, everybody could be controlled. And we should always have the rule, the iron rule, that the human being must have the last word. We should never allow that the artificial intelligence can, so to say, overrun human beings or the decision or the problems or the concerns of human beings.
Right now, the US is leading in large language models and advanced AI chips, while China is leading AI applications. Are you worried this will divide the world into two camps, one centered on the US, another centered on China?
Yeah, but look, again, if the technology is in the world, then it's no mystery anymore. Then next time everybody can use it or can create your own system. And I think sooner or later, China did it, you have your own internet, and we should create something in Europe as well, or a cloud. It is not, at the end, it is not very good that we are depending on some others.
Some in Europe would argue that dependence on US is safer, while dependence on China could be considered as a vulnerability or risk. Do you see this contrast?
I think it is no good if you are completely dependent on someone, whoever it is. I think in some areas, this is what I mean with resilience, with sovereignty. In some areas, we should control ourselves. We should have the control over important things, our financial transactions, cloud, internet, etc. This is important. And China does it, and we in Europe, we are now looking for the same. I mean, we are not interested to be, so to say, between the chairs. No? We have not an interest that Europe is, so to say, smashed between the two superpowers of America and China. We will have our own role and our own role to play, our own ideas, our own concepts, and we will continue with it. I regret that some countries are regressing from the international scene, which is not good. We need more cooperation in these times. We're living in a global village. We're living in a global village. And I think this brings also a global responsibility, that we have to work together in peace and stability. And peace is the basis for everything.
I remember you were born in the year of 1945 when the Second World War came to an end. And this year marks the 80th anniversary of the victory of that war. So how do you see the legacy of the World War II, and how has the history taught us about peace and war?
I'm born in Vienna, as you said it, in 1945. My mother was pregnant with me when the last and the most difficult and most heavy bomb attacks rained over Vienna. At the beginning, when I was young, Vienna was completely destroyed. And today it was a kind of a miracle, economic miracle, like the Chinese miracle. And we are now among the top group of the European Union. So I think the first lesson is never a war, never use military force to solve a problem. Second lesson, we should cooperate and we should help each other. We have the responsibility to help the least developed countries in Africa or in Asia or in South America, wherever. And China does it. Europe is one of the big sponsors of international development. All in all, we can be really optimistic. And sometimes I'm asked, are you a pessimist or an optimist? And I said, look, not a pessimist and not an optimist. I want to become a possibilist, to make a positive future possible. And I think this is something that China and Europe could do together.
And Europe has nowadays faced many problems, from the debt crisis to the immigration crisis. So how do you see Europe's future?
Problems are always there. This is not new. If there's a problem, let's sit down, negotiate, and solve it. And each problem is solvable. This is my firm belief.
I have one question about Taiwan, because it remains one of the most sensitive issues in global politics. Europe has emphasized on peace and stability, but the US keep pushing arms sales to Taiwan. So how do you see your positioning?
I think there is a clear position of all European countries. We stick to the one China policy, that's clear. So this is no doubt about it, no separation, no independence, one China policy, but also solving problems with peaceful means. No military intervention, no military means.
Thank you.
Great, good.
Thank you so
Thank you.
much.
Fine.